Lucy was slicing herbs on the kitchen counter when she felt someone standing behind her. It was Roger, her employer. He did not say good morning. He did not ask for coffee. He simply stood there in silence, staring at her hand. Lucy tried to hide it, but it was already too late. The bruise, the cut, the finger marks, everything was exposed. Before she could invent an excuse, Roger asked, "Who hit you?" Lucy trembled, dropped the knife, and whispered the sentence that would change both of their lives forever. "If I tell you, he will kill my daughter." What she did not know was that, in that exact moment, the wrong person had finally seen the truth. Lucy had worked in Roger Whitmore's mansion for 3 years. She was the longest-serving and most trusted worker in the house. She had never missed a single day. She never complained. She never asked for a raise. She never raised a voice. And Roger had always treated her with respect, the same way he treated everyone who worked for him. But in recent months, he had begun noticing things that deeply disturb him. Lucy had changed. She arrived even quieter than usual. She avoided almost everyone's eyes. She moved slowly, as if every step caused her pain. And at the end of each workday, when the clock showed 5 o'clock in the evening and it was time to leave, Lucy did not leave. She invented tasks that did not exist. She washed things that were already clean. She wiped floors that were already shining. She rearranged cabinets she herself had organized that very morning. It was as though every extra minute inside the mansion was one more minute stolen from the place she did not want to return to. And the truth was simple. Lucy did not want to go home. Because at home, Joel was waiting for her. Joel was the kind of abuser the world never notices. He did not scream in the street. He did not make scenes in front of neighbors. He did not break things where people could see. Joel was quiet, calculating, and methodical. The beatings always happened the same way. When the door was closed, when the lights were low, when no one else could see. Every night inside the house, Joel showed who he truly was. And every morning, in front of everyone, he put on the mask of a decent man. Because outside, Joel was someone else entirely. A light smile. A firm handshake. Always ready to help a neighbor. Present at community events. Respectful toward the elderly. Every Sunday, he appeared at church, sitting in the front row. People considered Joel a good man. No one in that neighborhood, not a single living soul, would have suspected that the same man who smiled on the sidewalk was the one who, when night fell, squeezed Lucy's arm so hard that the marks of his fingers stayed on her skin like a stamp of pain. And Joel knew it. He used that image as a shield, as a weapon, as proof that he would never be punished. Almost every night, after beating her, he looked at Lucy and repeated the same sentence with the calmness of a man absolutely certain of his own power. "Tell whoever you want. Nobody will believe you. Look at me, then look at yourself." And Lucy believed him. Because after years of hearing those words every night, after years of being broken from the inside and the outside, Lucy no longer knew who she was. She looked into the bathroom mirror at the mansion and did not recognize the face staring back at her. She thought maybe Joel was right. Maybe she was worth nothing. Maybe no sane person would look at her and believe her word against Joel's. Maybe this was her life. Maybe she would die like that, in silence, and no one would ever know. Because sometimes the most terrifying prison has no bars. Sometimes the worst prison is when the whole world believes you're jailer. Joel also controlled every single cent Lucy earned. He took her entire salary and spent it on alcohol, drugs, and other women. And whenever Lucy tried to object, Joel removed his mask and showed his teeth. He threatened to take custody of her 15-year-old daughter. He threatened to hurt the girl if Lucy ever opened her mouth. So Lucy endured everything in silence. Because a mother will suffer anything to protect her child. The next day, Roger found Lucy before breakfast. He did not pressure her. He did not demand answers. He did not fire questions at her. He sat on a stool in the kitchen and spoke in the gentlest voice he could manage. "I know what this is, Lucy. I watched it happen to my mother." Lucy lifted her eyes in shock. That was the last thing she expected to hear from a man like Roger Whitmore. An entrepreneur in a dark navy suit, owner of a mansion with a garden and a pool, was telling her that he knew that kind of pain. Roger told her only the minimum. He said that when he was a child, his father beat his mother. That she suffered in silence, just like Lucy. That he had been too young to do anything. He did not tell her what happened afterward. He did not tell her that his mother had died. He kept that buried deep inside himself, waiting for the moment when it would be necessary. But he said the sentence that remained hanging in the air like a promise. I was too little to protect my mother. But I am not little anymore. Lucy began to cry again. But something had changed in those tears. It was no longer the crying of a woman surrendering. It was the crying of someone who, for the first time in years, was hearing another human being say, I believe you. Lucy accepted his help, but begged him for one thing. Please, do not let him find out, Mr. Whitmore. For God's sake, if Joel finds out, he will kill me. Roger promised her. And that same evening, when the mansion had fallen into silence, he picked up his phone and made a call. I need a camera with a microphone. Tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the morning, I will send you the address. The next day, while Joel went out into the street wearing his usual smile, a discreet crew entered the house and installed a camera with a microphone in the living room. It was positioned to capture the entrance, the hallway, and part of the kitchen. Joel noticed nothing. Lucy did not know either, because Roger had decided not to tell her. He was afraid that if Lucy knew, even the smallest change in her behavior might make Joel suspicious. And with Joel, suspicion was dangerous enough to kill. The camera was turned on that very evening. And what it captured within the first hours made Roger want to cross the entire city and drag Joel out of that house with his own hands. At the beginning of the recording, everything looked normal. Joel came home from work. He ate dinner in silence. He watched television. Lucy washed the dishes, cleaned the kitchen, and went to the bedroom. But when the lights went out, the night vision camera recorded everything. Joel got out of bed, approached Lucy, and started beating her. Shoves. Slaps. Words that cut deeper than any blow. You are nothing. You will never be anything. You should be grateful I am still here. Roger watched the footage alone in his office in the mansion, in the middle of the night. He had to pause the video many times, because those images did not show only Lucy's suffering. They showed his mother. The same scene. The same gestures. The same silent despair of a woman suffering in the dark while no one knew. Roger's hand shook. His eyes burned. But he kept watching, because every second of that recording was one more piece of proof that Joel would pay. Then the camera showed something Roger had not expected. After beating Lucy, Joel got dressed, put on a jacket, and left the house in the middle of the night. The camera captured the scene. Joel walked to the gate and met someone in the darkness of the street. A quick exchange took place. Joel received a package and handed over money. The entire thing lasted less than a minute. But Roger understood. Something far bigger was happening inside the house. Over the following days, the same pattern repeated. Every night, different people appeared at the gate. Packages changed hands. Short conversations happened in the dark. Suspecting something worse, Roger contacted a private investigator. The answer came quickly. Joel was connected to drug trafficking in the neighborhood and was using Lucy's house as a transfer point for deliveries. But that was not all. The investigator uncovered something even worse. Joel had opened bank accounts and credit cards using Lucy's documents without her knowledge. Huge debts had piled up in her name. Loans, purchases, credit lines. Lucy, who could barely understand a bank statement, had been buried under a mountain of debt she had never taken. When Roger told Lucy about the financial crimes, she panicked. She shook from head to toe. As if being beaten was not enough, she had now discovered that her husband had destroyed her name completely. He had buried her in debt, and she had not even known. I will never get out of this, Mr. Whitmore. He tied me down in every possible way. Roger took her hands in his, looked into her eyes, and said with a firmness that left no room for doubt, He did not tie you down, Lucy. He tied himself down. Because now, all of this is evidence. A few days later, Lucy became sick in the mansion kitchen. Nausea. A kind of nausea she already knew. A kind she had felt once before in her life, 15 years earlier. She leaned against the sink, looked into the mirror, and understood before any test could confirm it. Lucy was pregnant. The news shattered her from the inside. A pregnancy that came from a marriage where she had never had a choice in anything, not even over her own body. Lucy cried alone in a small storage room at the back of the mansion. She thought about her daughter, who already lived in fear. She thought about how she would bring another child into the hell that her home had become. When she told Roger, he remained silent for a long time. Then he said with a strength Lucy had never heard in anyone's voice before, "This child will not be born into that hell. I promise you." And something inside Lucy changed forever. For the first time in many years, she believed someone. This child would be born. But this child would be born free. Whatever it took. If you enjoy this story, write in the comments where you are watching from. In the next story, I will send a special greeting to subscribers of the channel. Today's greeting goes to Marlene Carter from Savannah, Georgia. That same evening, Roger opened his laptop in the mansion. On the screen were dozens of hidden camera recordings. He selected the most serious clips. He saved everything onto a flash drive. He organized the documents proving the financial fraud, the evidence of drug trafficking, the images, the audio recordings, and the footage of the beatings. Then he took his car keys, put on his dark navy suit, and drove to the Special Domestic Violence Unit. The investigator watched the videos in silence. When she finished, she removed her glasses, rubbed her eyes, and said only one sentence. "With this, he will not escape anything." The police operation began to be prepared under absolute secrecy. Joel could not know. Lucy could not change her behavior. Everything had to look exactly the same as before until the day of the operation. Roger personally instructed Lucy, "I know this is hard, but keep going to work. Keep coming home. Keep doing everything the way you always have. There is only a little more left, Lucy. I promise you." Lucy obeyed. Even though she was dying of fear inside, she did exactly what Roger asked. Because for the first time in her life, she trusted someone. Then, one evening that looked like any other, Joel came home with an unusual smile. For the first time in months, he hugged Lucy and proudly told her what had happened. "Do you know what they told me today? The church is going to honor me on Sunday. A model citizen. I will even give a speech in front of everyone." Joel laughed. Lucy hid the chill running down her spine. And the hidden camera in the living room recorded every second of that scene. In the days leading up to Sunday, Joel lived like a king. He bought a new shirt. He rehearsed his thank you speech in front of the bathroom mirror, gesturing, correcting his posture, practicing his smile. He left the house greeting every neighbor who crossed his path, with an enthusiasm that bordered on absurd. He told anyone willing to listen that on Sunday, during Mass, he would be honored as the neighborhood's model citizen. The neighbors talked among themselves. That Joel is an example to everyone. Lucy is lucky to have such a husband. And on those same nights, while he rehearsed his speech, Joel shoved Lucy against the kitchen wall because dinner was 2 minutes late. The camera recorded everything. Every frame went straight to the flash drive that was already in the investigator's hands. Roger received the call he had been waiting for on Wednesday evening. The investigator spoke directly. "Mr. Whitmore, everything is ready." "When?" "Sunday, during the 10 o'clock Mass." Roger hesitated for a moment. Inside the church. Inside the church. In front of all the people who think he is a saint. On Saturday evening, Roger was alone in his office at the mansion. On the computer screen were the worst recordings. Joel beating Lucy. Drug packages being exchanged at the gate. Threats whispered in the dark. Roger closed the computer, took a deep breath, opened the desk drawer, and removed an old photograph. It was small and yellowed by time. A young, beautiful woman with a shy smile, holding a child in her arms. It was Iris, his mother. Roger stared at that photograph for a long time. Then he whispered, as if she could hear him, "Tomorrow, Mom. Tomorrow I will do what I could not do for you." He placed the photograph in the pocket of his suit jacket and went to bed. At the same hour, on the other side of the city, Lucy could not close her eyes. She lay in bed beside Joel, who was snoring calmly, with no idea what was waiting for him. Lucy stared into the darkness for hours. She thought about her daughter sleeping in the next room. She thought about the baby growing inside her. She thought about everything she had silently endured over all those years. A tear rolled from the corner of her eye and wet the pillow. But it was not a tear of sadness. It was a tear of something Lucy had not felt in a very, very long time. It was hope. On Sunday, the sun rose hot, and the sky was clear. The church bells began ringing at 9:30, calling the community to the 10 o'clock Mass. Joel woke up excited. He put on his new shirt, adjusted his collar in front of the mirror, sprayed himself with cologne, and smiled at his own reflection. "Today is my day." Then he left the house without looking back. Roger had been awake for several hours. Dark navy suit. Hair carefully arranged. He called the investigator. "Are we ready?" "We are ready." 2 unmarked cars are already in position. 3 plainclothes agents are already inside the church, sitting in the pews. Then Roger called Lucy. His voice was calm, but firm. "Lucy, listen to me. Do not leave the house. Do not go to the church. No matter what happens today, do not be afraid. Today, it ends." Lucy held the phone with both trembling hands and answered in a breaking voice. "Okay." Joel arrived at the church like a celebrity. A handshake for everyone who crossed his path. Long hugs. Pats on the back. The parishioners stepped aside for him with a level of respect Joel savored like the finest wine in the world. He walked to the front row and sat down with his hands folded on his knees, looking around with pride spilling from every part of him. Mass continued as usual. Songs. Prayers. Readings. Until near the end, when the priest raised his voice and announced, "And now, dear brothers and sisters, we will honor a special member of our community, a man who is an example of devotion, family, and faith." Joel stood. The applause began before he even reached the altar. He climbed the 3 steps, turned toward the congregation, and smiled. He opened his mouth to begin the speech he had rehearsed so many times in the bathroom mirror. And in that exact moment, the heavy creak of the church doors echoed behind him as they swung open. Joel froze. His smile hardened on his face. He slowly turned around. Uniformed police officers entered in a line down the central aisle. Silence fell over the entire church like a curtain of lead. The priest stepped back. The parishioners rose from the pews, not understanding what was happening. No one breathed. The investigator walked down the central aisle, the same aisle Joel had walked down every Sunday as if he owned the world. She stopped in front of the altar, looked Joel straight in the eyes, and announced loudly and clearly, so that every person in that church could hear, "Joel Harris, you are under arrest for systematic domestic violence, fraud, and drug trafficking." Joel felt the blood drain from his face. He tried to resist. His voice came out shrill and desperate. "This is a lie. This is a setup. Everyone here knows me. Tell them. Speak for me." He looked around, waiting for support, waiting for the same faces that had applauded him seconds earlier to say something in his defense. But no one opened their mouth. No one moved. The silence inside the church was deafening. Joel was handcuffed right there in front of the altar, in front of every person who had shaken his hand, every person who had called him an example, every person who had said Lucy was lucky. The handcuffs clicked, and that sound echoed through the nave like the loudest sound in the world. Joel was led down the central aisle. His face was twisted with rage and desperation. The same parishioners who had stepped aside for him with admiration minutes earlier now turned their faces away as he passed. Lucy was not inside the church. She stood outside on the sidewalk, one hand resting on her belly, the other hanging at her side. She watched through the open door in silence as Joel was led in handcuffs toward the patrol car. She did not scream. She did not cry. She did not say a word. She simply watched. Inside the patrol car, Joel turned his face toward the window and saw Lucy standing there with her head held high, firm, wearing an expression he had never seen on her face before. And for the first time, there was no anger in Joel's eyes. There was fear. Because Joel finally understood. Lucy was no longer alone. She did not need to enter that church. She had already spent too long living in a world where Joel was the center of everything. Now Lucy was the center of her own story. The news of Joel's arrest spread through the neighborhood like fire through dry grass. The same people who had called him a saint, a devoted husband, and an example now said they had always suspected something strange about him. Lucy heard those comments and felt no anger, only tired sadness, because she knew that not one of those people had ever once asked whether she was okay. Joel was charged with 3 crimes: systematic domestic violence, fraud, and drug trafficking. The evidence was so extensive and so undeniable that no lawyer in the world could pull him out of that situation. With the legal help Roger provided, every debt Joel had taken out in Lucy's name was proven to be fraud and cancelled. Every scheme was tracked, documented, and overturned. Lucy received a protective order guaranteeing that Joel could never come near her or her daughter again. Custody remained completely with Lucy, uncontested. Joel lost every right. And one ordinary evening, a few weeks after the arrest, something happened that Lucy had not experienced in years. She slept through the entire night. She did not wake in the middle of the night with her heart pounding. She did not jump in terror at the sound of footsteps in the hallway. She slept from beginning to end. And when she opened her eyes in the morning and saw sunlight pouring through the window, she smiled. A small, shy smile, but a real one. One sunny day, Roger invited Lucy to speak with him in the mansion garden. They sat on a wooden bench beneath a large spreading tree. Roger remained silent for a while, looking at his own hands as though choosing his words with the greatest care in the world. "There is something I have never told anyone, Lucy. No one. But I owe it to you." Lucy waited in silence. Roger began slowly. He told her that when he was a child, he had lived with his father and mother in a simple house far from a city. His mother's name was Iris. She was a beautiful and kind woman who did everything she could to protect her son. But his father was cruel. He beat Iris almost every night. And little Roger watched his mother suffer in silence, smiling by day and crying by night, exactly like Lucy. A housekeeper who worked in that home saw everything that was happening. And one night, during a brutal explosion of violence, when his father completely lost control, that housekeeper did what Iris herself could not do. She took little Roger in her arms, wrapped him in a blanket, and ran out of that house in the middle of the night. She carried the boy to a shelter and saved his life. Roger's mother, Iris, was not as fortunate. A few days later, she died at the hands of her own husband. Roger grew up carrying two things in his chest, a pain that never healed and a promise he never forgot. If one day he had the chance to protect someone going through what his mother had gone through, he would do it without hesitation, without overthinking, no matter the cost. Roger looked at Lucy with eyes full of tears and said in a broken voice, "You do not know this, Lucy, but you healed a wound I have carried since I was 6 years old. I could not save my mother, but I was able to save you." Lucy cried. Roger cried. And there, on that garden bench beneath that tree, two people who carried similar pain finally found in each other what they had lost long ago, the certainty that they were no longer alone. Lucy, whose belly was already showing, wiped her eyes and asked a question she had not planned to ask. "Mr. Whitmore, do you have any suggestion for what I should name my daughter?" Roger lowered his head, took a deep breath, swallowed the lump rising in his throat, and when he lifted his eyes again, he said only one word, in the most emotional voice Lucy had ever heard from him. "Iris. That was my mother's name. She would be happy to know her name would live again in a little girl born free." Lucy said nothing. She simply reached out and squeezed Roger's hand with a strength that said more than any words could. And they remained there in silence, listening to the wind moving through the leaves of the tree as the sun slowly lowered across the sky. Several months later, inside a hospital in the center of the city, the cry of a newborn baby echoed through the hallway. A nurse placed the child in Lucy's arms and smiled. "Congratulations, Mommy. You have a beautiful baby girl." Lucy looked at her daughter, so tiny, so perfect, and whispered her name for the first time. Iris. And inside that name lived every pain left behind, every night of fear, every swallowed tear. But inside that name also lived the memory of a woman who had not survived, and the promise that this story would never repeat itself again. Lucy sold the house where she had suffered. She did not take a single thing from that place. She did not want to keep anything that reminded her of who she had been when she belonged to that address. With Roger's help, she bought a simple little house in another neighborhood. Small, but bright. Clean, open, and full of something Lucy had never believed could exist within four walls. Peace. Her teenage daughter, who had spent years living in fear of every sound, every slamming door, every male voice raised too sharply, now had a mother beside her and a home where she could sleep peacefully. Lucy returned to work at Roger's mansion. But this time, she was a different woman. She walked through the door with her head held high. She looked people in the eyes. She spoke without fear. She smiled for real. Not out of obligation. Not to hide something. But because she finally had a reason to smile. And at the end of the workday, when the clock showed 5 o'clock in the evening, Lucy took her bag and left on time. She did not invent extra tasks. She did not wipe things that were already clean. She did not stay even 1 minute longer. Because going home was no longer frightening. Going home had become the best part of the day. On the porch of her new house, during a sunny afternoon, Lucy sat in a rocking chair with sleeping Iris in her arms. The baby's face was the image of peace, as if the whole world were made only of warmth and embraces. The sun slowly sank toward the horizon, painting the sky in orange and gold. Lucy looked at that sunset and felt something she had forgotten existed. Serenity. For the first time in many years, she was not afraid of what would come after sundown. For the first time, night did not mean pain. It did not mean fear. It did not mean darkness. It meant rest. It meant peace. It meant good silence. The kind of silence that hides nothing. The kind that does not come before another blow. The kind that is simply silence. And there, rocking gently in the chair with her daughter in her arms, Lucy finally understood a truth it had taken her an entire lifetime to learn. True wealth had never been Roger's money. It had never been the mansion, the dark navy suit, or the expensive cars. True wealth had always been the courage to ask for help and the kindness of someone willing to listen. Statement of content originality. Creator: Artificial Intelligence. Each video on this channel, Real Emotions, presents original narration with unique stories. When our stories are inspired by real events, we conduct deep research before developing the narrative. Images, video, and audio are created using artificial intelligence to improve illustration and dramatization, and they are individually designed specifically for each story. This channel provides substantial narrative value and entertainment through fictional, emotional, and detailed stories. Our content is not based on templates. It is not mass-produced. It is not repetitive. Each video represents hours and hours of original creative work and manual editing.